Queen of Codes.
That works. You can remember that one.
Yeah, that I'll remember. All right, so now we're live. So actually, protocol is for Kelly to call the meeting to order, and then ask for nominations, and whoever the chair might be would take over at that point. So I'll hand it over to you, Kelly.
That would be wonderful, because I'd really rather not do any more than call the reorganization meeting of the zoning board of 2021 to order. And then we do roll. Mr. Tate.
Here.
Mr. Bernardi.
Here.
Mr. Boynton.
Here.
Mr. Rhodes. Here. And Ms. Maselli.
Here.
The first item on the agenda is the reorganization / appointments. Do we have a motion to nominate candidate for chairman this evening?
I'll make a motion to nominate Bob Kane as the chair.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I move nominations be closed.
So be it. I second that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. With that, I'll ask. Actually, I'd like to nominate Bill Rhodes for vice chair.
Second that.
I'll make a motion to close the nominations.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Bill, welcome back as the king of vice.
Can I ask, is anybody else having a hard time with Bob Kane? He's kind of like echoey.
Maybe Kelly, you should mute again.
That's what it was.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone want to make a nomination for secretary?
I'd like to nominate Ed McGargy as secretary.
I'll second that. Oh, Jesse will second it. I'll
Thank
make
you.
a motion to close.
Second.
All in favor of Ed? Aye.
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 Okay. I'll make a motion to reappoint Bill Malone as the zoning solicitor for the year 2021.
I'll second that.
I make a motion that nominations be closed.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor of Bill?
Aye.
And so we want to make a nomination for court reporter?
I'll nominate
Arlene LaRosa?
LaRose, I'm sorry, as our faithful stenographer, reporter.
That's a pretty heavy condition, Bill. Okay.
Make a motion the nomination be closed.
I'll second that. All in favor of Arlene? Aye. Welcome back, Arlene. Cal, the newspapers. Who's our primary now? Delco?
Yeah.
News of or Delco Daily? Yeah. So, was that a motion, Ed?
I'll make a motion that we consider Delaware County Daily Times as our primary newspaper of record.
We need to appoint a secondary newspaper. Is there a...
I've never had a problem, not needing. I've never needed a secondary paper, but if anyone has any suggestions, just in case.
Is the News of Delaware County still published, or is there another local? Yeah.
It's still published.
Yeah. So I would, and I guess I'd offer to amend your motion to include the News of Delaware County as our secondary newspaper.
We're just making a second.
Or, yeah. So we can vote on the primary one. I'll second Ed's motion for the Daily Times as our primary.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So be it. Now, the next item, the meeting agenda.
Well, we were going to do a second motion, Bob.
Oh, you want to do a second motion? I thought we
all right, so I'll
amended
make a motion for the using Delaware County as our secondary newspaper.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. With respect to the meeting agenda, I would like to change our April 15th hearing to April 22nd because it's tax day. I mean, because we're remote, Cal, it doesn't make a difference for the meeting room.
Well,
right?
they are both filmed, and I need to be at both of them. I can't.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
They're both filmed in this meeting room. They're both broadcast live, and I need to be at both meetings. So that is a little difficult. What I can offer instead is the 29th, which is the 5th Thursday of the month, which does not have any meeting.
So then we would be meeting on the 29th and the 6th. If that's too much of a pain for everybody to have two meetings in 2 weeks, you know, then we'll leave it on the 15th. If it's an easy accommodation, I would appreciate it. So,
Yeah, why don't we leave it on the why don't we move it to the 29th on the schedule, and if we find out that we don't have the caseload that warrants back-to-back meetings, we can just push one off, and maybe the one to push off is the early May one, and leave the 29th to split the difference.
okay,
But we can decide that later.
that sounds good. Is everybody pretty comfortable with changing it to April 1st and April 29th?
That works.
Yep.
Okay, then I'll read the meeting dates. So I'll just make the motion to set the following 2021 calendar of meetings for the Zoning Hearing Board: January 7, January 16, February 4 and 18, March 4 and 18, April 1 and 29, May 6 and 20, June 3rd and 17, July 15th, August 5th, September 2nd and 16, October 7 and 21, November 4 and 18, December 2nd and 16th, and the meetings to convene at, I suppose everybody wants to leave them at 7:30, right? Okay.
I just note that January should be the 14th, not the 16th. Saturday.
Oh. Good pickup, Jess.
So, is it really that we're having a meeting next week, or is it the following Thursday? Wouldn't it be the 21st?
Kelly's checking her calendar.
It is the 21st, yes.
So just so we're square for the record, the January meetings will be January 7 and 21. The April meetings will be April 1 and 29. All others, for the time being, remain the same, and all to convene at 7:30. Any other discussions or comment? Okay, then because it's in the form of a motion, I suppose we need a second and a vote. So,
Yeah, I'll second it.
okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's our meeting schedule. So now we adjourn. We will, in a moment, adjourn our reorganization meeting, and then we'll convene the regular meeting. Bill Malone just texted me and asked me if he should log on. But we'll take a couple minutes, and then we'll convene the regular hearing. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate the chairmanship. You know, I have fun doing this, and I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity. So with that, we'll adjourn the reorganization meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board, and in a few minutes, we'll convene the regular agenda hearing. So with that, we're adjourned. Ed, I hope I'm doing it. I need you, Ed, or Jess, to do the choppy. All right, we'll call to order the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, January 7th, 2021. Present via Zoom is Ed McGargy, a voting member, Bill Rhodes, a voting member, Jessica Vitale, a voting member, and Jesse Poynton, a voting member. Welcome to the board, Jesse. We have 3 new cases on the agenda this evening. And before we begin, Bill Rhodes, would you please lead us in the pledge? And the flag will be to your left.
This left?
That left.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Our first case is case Z21-1. Jared Popovis and Antipi Paxinos, owners of 635 Kenilworth Road, Ardmore, PA, DC folio number 2206-0129000, who seek a variance from the provisions of section 182-208C2F1 and 182-208C2G to construct a new 11-foot by 18-foot rear deck that will encroach into the required 25-foot rear yard setback by 10 feet and encroach into the required 12-foot side yard setback by 2 feet. Property is zoned R6 and located in the 6th ward. Okay. Bill, you want to go through the exhibits real quick?
Sure. If you could, I do have one question on the exhibits. So can we actually swear them in first?
Okay. Who do we have for that case?
There's no attorney. You have both Jared and who are on the screen right now. They have to unmute themselves.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening. So I need to swear each of you. First, Antipi, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Antipi Paxinos, 635 Kenilworth Road, Ardmore, PA, 19003.
And now you, Jared, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Jared Popovis, 635 Kenilworth Road, Ardmore, Pennsylvania, 19003.
Okay. And I would ask that only one of you speak at a time and try not to speak over each other so that the court reporter can take an accurate record down. So with that, Bill, do you want to run through the exhibits real quick?
Sure. Mr. Kane, actually, before we do that, and because I was not on, did you actually do the whole reorganization on the record before I came on?
Yes.
Okay, great. And my one question for you is, I understood there was a question regarding the 2nd April meeting. Was that addressed?
Yes. There were two changes to the meeting schedule. January, the meetings are January 7 and 21st. And April is April 1st and April 29. And Bill Rhodes had a good suggestion. If we don't have a heavy agenda, then we would probably cancel the 6th, May 6th, but we'll see where we stand when that time comes.
Great. Thank you. With regard to this application, I reviewed, we have 10 pre-marked exhibits. Exhibit A2, and I'm going to go through all of them, but Exhibit A2 is the deed, and generally looks to be in order, but I do have one question for the applicants. Deed as it's written names Jared and Antipi, and then indicates it's a trustee for the Popovich Paxinos deed of trust dated September 15, 2014. Could one of you tell me who the trustee is, one or both of you?
We are both the trustee. We had the house set up in a trust when we purchased the property, I believe 6 years ago.
Back in September 15th of 2014, correct?
Yes, yes,
And your co-trustees?
yes.
All right, I'm satisfied after that. I just wanted to clarify that standing is appropriate. What I want to do now is identify each of the exhibits that have been pre-marked. I'm going to list them and state them for the record. Then I'm going to ask you at the end, after I'm done all 10 of them, whether I've properly identified them and whether they are exhibits that you intend to move into. So with that, I have Exhibit A1 as your variance application as well as your signed acknowledgement. Exhibit A2 is the deed that I just referenced. Exhibit A3 is the letter of denial dated November 12, 2020, Township of Haverford. Exhibit A4 is a building permit application and contract. Exhibit A5 is a calculation worksheet for building and impervious surface coverage. A6 is a site plan. A7 is a construction plan or a set of construction plans. A8 is a photograph, and I believe I'm correctly identifying this, which looks directly at the rear of the property.
Correct.
A9 is a photograph, which would be a side view. If I was standing at the rear of your property, it would be as if I had moved to the right and then turned my view to the side.
Correct.
And then A10 is another photograph, again, from that same angle, however, more of a close-up look.
Correct.
Did I correctly identify all of those exhibits?
Yes.
And is it your desire and intent to have those admitted into the record before this board?
Yes.
Mr. Kane, I don't see any reason not to accept these as evidence. Again, I do feel, based upon my questioning, that standing is appropriate under Exhibit A2.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Now that we've gotten the formalities out of the way, whoever's going to be the primary spokesperson, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you would like to do and why?
Right, good evening, everyone. Thanks again for your time. In short, Antipi and I, we'd like to remove the existing structure, and we'd like to construct a new 11 by 18 foot deck, approximately 198 square feet. Photos in the exhibits, which I'd like to go through momentarily. You can see this is the deck as is from when we purchased the property. We've deemed it unsafe. We really don't use the deck at this time. Ultimately, we'd like to construct this new deck to increase the living space and ultimately add value to the home. If I could first direct to A8. Exhibit A8, the first photograph. I'm hoping you guys have all this stuff in color because it doesn't really portray nicely in black and white. But in the center, you can kind of see the deck starting to belly due to inadequate support. The poles on the front, the posts, the footings aren't in correctly. And on the rear of the deck, there's actually two steel beams that come out of the house and connect to the deck. And this is what provides rear support structure for the deck. And this is ultimately what we're trying to alleviate just to have a more sound structure. You can also see on the hand railing, if you kind of zoom in, that the wood is warped, it's rotted, and it's really not safe. We don't really use it. Moving to the next picture, Exhibit A9.
Jared, could I just ask one question on the very last thing you said? Looking at A8, the staircase. Does the staircase serve both you and your neighbor's deck currently?
Correct. Yeah.
It does.
Question.
Okay.
It's a joint staircase, and what we're ultimately looking to do for safety reasons is remove the staircase. We both consider it a security risk to have direct access to the house through the kitchen. So I suppose it's personal preference. Some people like it, but we consider it a security risk. We're looking to get rid of the stairs, and if you kind of focus in underneath the stair, that first landing, you can see a third support beam, but that's not really supporting the deck. That's more supporting the stair leading up to that joint structure. that you were referring to, the joint stairwell.
Yeah, I got you.
If I could then move to Exhibit A9 from the side profile of the house. Here, I just wanted to kind of gain perspective of where our deck is, to address more of the rear setback in relation to a lot of our neighbors. We did take that into consideration when looking to develop a plot plan. We didn't want anything extravagant or that would stand out. We are actually looking, our design would be inwards of all the other decks that you see beyond. There's another one beyond the immediate one that you see. And this also gives you another angle of the footing that's not properly put in on the front portion, as well as another good view of the stairwell there that connects to the joint landing. So something that we did take into consideration with regards to the rear yard setback and how large we wanted the deck to protrude out from the house towards the alleyway. And finally, the last photo, Exhibit A10, something that we just wanted to put in to stress the structural integrity and how we're questioning the structural integrity of the deck as it stands. Here you have more visuals of the warped wood, and here you can actually see connecting to the pole and the deck is nothing more than a little piece of block wood. So it's really hanging on by a thread, so to speak. So it's just something we'd like to address. It is an eyesore. It doesn't look nice when you go down the alleyway. It is the ugliest deck. So we're looking to brighten up the neighborhood and add value and usable living space to the house. That's really about it. Thank you, guys.
So, but Jared, you said this is on, do you guys have children?
Not yet, no.
Not yet, but you will.
Hopefully.
You plan
yes.
to?
Hopefully.
And so this deck is unsafe, and that's the reason you want to replace it, right? Because it's not safe?
Yeah, we really don't use it. We've deemed it unusable.
Because it's not safe. That's why you don't use it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And so while you're reconstructing it, you'd like to extend it a little further from the house, right? Basically, is that what we're looking at here?
Correct, yeah. We'd like to stay in line with the existing structure to address the side yard setback. We weren't really looking to move it left or right. And to go back to the way the deck is currently constructed with the two steel beams coming out of the house, holding up the rear portion of the deck, we're looking to construct a freestanding structure. So there would be 4 beams. So if we were to move the deck to the left 2 feet to accommodate the side yard setback, it would be in the way of the garage entrance. It would kind of impede utilizing the garage the way it should. So we weren't really looking to move it left or right. We were trying to keep it in line as far as left and right with the existing structure. And then yes, we were going to bring it out a little bit lengthwise, but we did take into consideration, what the neighborhood has, and we weren't looking, to build anything that would extravagant or larger than any of our neighbors. We did take that into consideration.
I always reserve my questions for last. So with that, Jess, do you have questions?
Yes. What is your existing deck size? Do you know?
So I want to say that we are adding, and I apologize.
Take your time.
So I believe Exhibit A6, the plot plan, if you guys are looking at the plot plan, the dotted line here is the existing deck, and we have that marked as 10 by 8, right?
So you're adding about a foot.
Yes. Yeah, I hope I'm deciphering this right. Sorry. But Exhibit A6 has the existing deck in a dotted line, and then the proposed deck in the solid line. And I believe it's just offset a little bit for visual purposes. You can see the dotted line.
Okay. And then, does the deck, as it currently exists, line up with the edge of your house?
Yes.
Okay. So your house is already 2 feet into the side yard setback?
Yes, correct. And we actually, I didn't go through the deed and survey the property to an exact science, but I did take out a measuring tape, and from the edge of the driveway, to measure 25 feet, that would actually take you well into the garage space. So I suppose as the house is already encroaching on the side yard setback, the garage would be already encroaching on the rear yard setback just the same.
Okay. And then, are you planning to add any utilities to the deck, like a light or electric?
So right now, I believe there's wires hooked up for 2 lights on the posts. We have an existing floodlight underneath the deck structure, which we're looking to keep just for light underneath the deck and carport when you pull in, or for movement in the alleyway. And then we were just going to utilize the same wiring essentially and put maybe a light or 2 on the post of the construction. Yes.
But you're not planning on putting any plumbing or hardwired or gas or anything out there?
No.
Okay. And then, are you going to install any kind of roof structure over the deck?
Structure, no.
Or awning? No. Okay. No. And you will be, you won't be enclosing the area underneath the deck. It'll remain open to your garage.
Correct. Yes.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Ed McGargy?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The question I had, and I think you answered it, but I want to get it clear on the record, is that I know you're worried about stability and the sagging in the center, but you will not be putting any post in the driveway portion of the deck, will you, in the center between the 2 existing posts?
No, great question. So primarily what we're looking to address is the footing, the way the posts enter into the concrete, which gives it its base. Both the footings here on the front 2 posts as it sits are not in correctly here, and then the rear has those steel beams. So we're looking to shave down those steel beams along the house and put in 4 posts, if you could picture it on a deck, so that it has complete and sturdy structure with a nice beam coming across the center of it to prevent the sag, and also it's not relying on the house for stability as well. So it would kind of address three of our concerns all in one by making the structure freestanding.
So you will not narrow the driveway or the garage door entrance. You will just have 4 posts rather than the house.
Yeah, we utilize the garage now, and we're hoping to continue to do as such.
And so the beams that you will be installing underneath the deck for support will not protrude down into the area of the garage door, making it any shorter either.
No, I actually have a truck, and that was one of my main concerns. I wanted to make sure I could pull my truck into the driveway and, utilize the driveway. That was definitely one of my main concerns as well.
And as for the question of living space, the front of your property, can you describe the front of your property?
Sure. It has a porch, an enclosed, well, it's not enclosed, it has a roof. It's a roofed covered porch. And that's about it, really.
Is it flat or is it hilly? Is it up stairs? Some of the houses on Kenilworth have stairs. I was just wondering.
Yeah, none of the ones on our immediate street have stairwells leading up. They're all walkways now that I'm picturing it in my head. But Kenilworth does go off to kind of like a curved side section where some of those stairs do exist.
Okay, that's where I was envisioning. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Bill Rhodes?
Yeah. Hi. So I wanted to just ask you, when you remove the sort of communal staircase, would you be thinking about moving or widening the deck to the building line, to the party wall line? Or are you intentionally planning to leave a gap between the two decks?
So our neighbor's desire is to keep the stairs, so we're going to move a little bit over towards the dividing line of the twin, and she's going to be rerouting her stairs along the same side, but she's going to be putting her stairwell along the same side. She might have to make some adjustments with the sizing of her deck to get the stairwell in there, but we're trying to keep that property line in mind when we're doing this. That was also one of the main hurdles we had to get over, is we wanted no stairs and she wanted stairs, so happily we were able to come to an agreement there as neighbors, which was nice.
Okay, so the deck as depicted on A6 might be widened to go to the party wall property line?
Yeah, if you look at photo 8.8, you can see where the microwave vent is on my property is on the right, my neighbor's property is on the left, so that's a pretty good depiction of where both of our properties end and where that property line is. If you could picture kind of like an invisible line in between those two microwave vents, that's kind of what we're working with, so we wouldn't be going too much past that microwave vent there, because then we'd be encroaching on, you know, like the dividing line of the property, so we're trying to be cognizant of that as well.
And then I want to switch to a different exhibit if I could. Bear with me here. This is exhibit A7. On the third page, there's stairs and stair detail in your contractor's design. I'm assuming that was maybe done at a time when you were thinking about stairs, but in fact there wouldn't be a staircase now.
Yes, at first we were using the same contractor, my neighbor and I. Obviously, she's going to need someone to help her get the work done with her stair rerouting. So we had brought different contractors over and we were interviewing them together. And at first we were using the same contractor, which is why I believe these original plot plans, including stairs, were included. However, since she's gone with a separate contractor, and we're still moving forward with the same, but we are not looking to include stairs as noted in the original estimate.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to make sure, because you're going to submit all of this to the as evidence, and I just want to make sure it was clear from the record that notwithstanding its inclusion in your plans, it's not actually part of the project.
Yeah, I do apologize for that. It's a good catch.
That's okay. Yep, that's okay. I remember also seeing, I believe, in your materials, a discussion that this would be white clad with black spindles. Is that right?
I'll let the interior designer speak more towards the color coordinations.
And Thibby, I think it's on A4, the third page. 3-foot high white vinyl private. First under the rails, white vinyl rails with black 3/4 inch round aluminum spindles, right? And just so people understand, would that probably pull that? If you go to A9, the view of the rear of your property looking down the alley, several houses down on the left side across the alley. That's what your deck would look like, essentially?
Yes.
And then the only other question I had is on that same third page of Exhibit A4, I'm sorry, it mentions a 3-foot high white vinyl privacy lattice installed on top of all the rails. And but then later on in the exhibit A7, I don't see that depicted in the design detail for the railing, or is it so? This is a 3-foot wide privacy lattice, 3 foot tall, that would be installed on top of the railings of your patio?
Yes, that's correct.
And so really what we're talking about is we have a railing all the way around that's approximately, let's just say roughly, it says 36-inch minimum height. So you'd have 3 feet high of the railing that looks like the one across the alley or down the alley. And then on top of that, you were planning to put another 3 foot high lattice essentially on top of the railing all the way around?
Yeah, so our intent was to kind of create like a little bit of an oasis where you walk out and necessarily, the first thing that you see isn't necessarily all your neighbors. So it would not be enclosed by any means, but yes, it would be the attachable lattice to the railing as you described, yes.
And just to make sure that I didn't miss it, because I could have, is there any detail about how that lattice would appear?
I actually have a picture in the book. Do you want me to grab it and show you?
Yeah, Bill, I don't know that she can admit that, though, as evidence, right?
If she was to do that, we would need to have it admitted as an exhibit. So the only negative would be that we would have to find a way to have that provided to the board, admitted at the next hearing. It would prevent you from rendering a decision tonight, is essentially the issue.
If I could describe it, would that be helpful?
Sure. That's up to the board, yeah.
So the lattice would not be completely enclosed. There would be light that would be able to shine through, a little bit of light. If you picture like overlapping lattice stripes, kind of like in a checkerboard formation with a little bit of a squared gap in between each, so that there's light, there's air, there's sound that can go through. But as far as like an immediate visual, it does provide somewhat more of privacy. But it wouldn't by no means be enclosed. Hopefully that helps assist.
Yeah, it does. And, typically I think we see lattice the way you're describing underneath decks or, to keep animals from nesting under a lower deck or a lower, patio. I just hadn't seen it done like that above the railings. And I wasn't sure either whether the code has any issues about the height of railings on decks. I'm not aware if it does, but is that a centrally important design element that you need for this approval?
Well, 2 of our neighbors actually have those side posts that come up between 5 to 6 feet on each side for privacy. It would essentially be the same height.
But yours would go on 3 sides.
Correct. Honestly, when we walk out of our back kitchen door, what we see is Haverford Road and everyone on their decks.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to have a tiny bit of privacy.
Right. Okay. I just want to see. I think that was the last of the questions I had written down.
So you're through for now, Bill?
And I just want to confirm, so on your open side yard, the new deck will not encroach into the side yard any more than your existing deck.
Correct. Yeah, we were adamant about trying to stay in line with the edge of the house, kind of as the existing structure is now, just for visually pleasing purposes. I think it would look offset if it went too far in or too far out. We were just trying to keep it the way it is now, in line with the existing structure. Correct.
Okay, and based on A6, it appears that the proposed deck would be about 3 feet deep or closer to the rear property line than the current one, and a little bit over towards the party wall, but not right up to the party wall.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Okay. Jesse? You have questions?
Well, Bill just took my last question. Yeah, I think it had come up before that we were only adding, that you were only proposing 1 extra foot, but yeah, I wanted to clarify that for the record, that it looked like the existing was 8 feet, proposed is 11 feet, so that is correct?
Correct. Yes, we definitely took that into consideration. I know trash trucks and a lot of emergency vehicles have to get back there, so we didn't want to make anything extravagant that was going to protrude too far. So we tried to look what our neighbors had, see what might have fit for us, and then came up with a little plot plan, which hopefully would work.
Okay, and then also I'll just to hammer it home, your property appears to be 20 feet wide, 12 foot plus 8 foot, and then the proposed deck is 18 feet. You're proposing to have it flush to one side, leaving a 2 foot space on you and your neighbors. Do I have that correct?
Could you repeat that once more? I'm sorry about that.
Sorry, that's okay. Your property appears to be 20 feet wide, adding up, there's a 12 foot and an 8 foot dimension. I think it's 20, your home is 20 feet wide, your proposed deck is 18 feet wide, and it would be a line flush to one side, so that would bring it 2 feet away from your party line.
Correct. Yeah, we were trying to be cognizant of the divider line there, and we weren't trying to get too close to it, so we wanted to give ourselves proper distance from it. So yes, about 2 feet. Yeah.
And then going back to, not to beat it into the ground, but back to the railing, the lattice on top, I would want to confirm whether that was part of the structural integrity of the rail, because I think, and I don't know that I'm allowed to give architectural advice, but I would consider the height versus the code for, because your deck is 8 feet above the ground. This 36-inch high minimum may be for decks that are lower to the ground, and I would look into that. The code may require that to be a taller railing, and you'll note that they have a note about the 200 pounds. I would want you to confirm that the lattice is not part of that structural requirement, and that the structural railing is at the appropriate height. That might come up in the code review. I don't know.
Yeah, what we do know is that the lattice is an optional thing that we can put on, but it was something that was important to us just so that we could gain a little bit more privacy, as we mentioned. So I don't know if that helps answer your question anymore, but thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you have the proper height railing for the height of the deck above the ground.
Sure.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thanks, Jesse. So, Jared, it's not crystal clear to me what exactly what it is you intend to do with this railing. So you're going to have the railing, and it'll be built in accordance with the township codes. You're not asking for any relief from the railing height, and whatever that number is, as Jesse pointed out, is what the height of the railing will have to be. But then on top of that, you want to add a 3-foot privacy piece around the perimeter of the deck. Is that correct?
Correct. And as we mentioned, we do not want this to be enclosed by any means. There will be breakthroughs in the lattice where light can shine through, and it is a separate addition to the railing, so it's not part of the railing by any means.
It's more of a privacy thing. I understand that, but yeah. Do any of your neighbors have that?
They have them on these sides.
Are any of them visible in the photographs that you submitted?
So actually the wooden one by that tree on the left, I'm not sure if you can see it.
Exhibit A9.
They actually have taller side railings. Privacy left to right. And then actually the deck directly behind our neighbors, which is not shown in the picture, also has a privacy on both ends.
On top of the fence or like blocking out the view?
It's like a 5 foot, just one piece.
Like a divider between the two decks?
Yeah. Similar to like a fence post.
What's the need for that? Other than when you look off your deck, you see Haverford Road. I mean, you're elevated already, so that gives you some element of privacy, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's just, when everyone's out back on their deck in the summer, you tend to see everyone on each side, so it would be nice just for some privacy, like we mentioned.
But you want to enclose the entire deck with this? Is that what you're proposing?
Yes. So what we're seeking to do is similar to how our neighbors have it on the sides to kind of prevent like a view from left to right. We were looking to include this on the front side as well. So I suppose to answer your question, no, it's not needed by any means necessary, but this is something that we figured would be nice, would add to the seclusion, and it would provide us with a little oasis, like I mentioned, where we could enjoy.
How critical is that to your project in your mind?
For Untitled, it's important, which is why it's included in the estimate. It's something that she was very adamant about and would like to include in the proposed deck construction.
Okay. I have Bill Malone. You're muted.
Yes.
Cal, can you put us in a side room? I have a question for Bill, so we're gonna block everybody out. We'll resume in 1 moment or 2 minutes.
Off the record.
I'm gonna go off the record. Just tell me when we're good to go. Okay, we'll resume the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board. Are there any other questions from board members? Jess? Ed?
No, but are we on recording?
Yes. Bill Rhodes?
No other questions, thank you, Bob.
Jesse?
Questions, thank you.
Okay, anything else you would like to add, Jared or Antipi?
No, thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll ask if there are any residents that receive certified mail that wish to testify that are on this Zoom meeting. Any residents that receive regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township With that, we'll close the record on this case, and the decision will either be rendered this evening, or in the event we're not able to reach a decision this evening, a decision would be rendered at our next regularly scheduled meeting on January 21st. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Our next case is Z21-2, Darby Road Realty LLC, owner of 2112 Darby Road, Haverford PA, DC folio number 2203-00677-00, who seek a special exception from section 182-404B3B to permit the second floor as one apartment, while the first floor will be occupied by a commercial tenant for business use, and a variance from the minimum off-street parking requirements of section 182-707 for a residential dwelling unit. Property is zoned C3 and located in the 3rd Ward. How you doing, Ed? You're on mute.
I am doing well, sir. How are you tonight?
All right. You're on.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Ed Kelly. I'm attorney with the law firm of Kennedy Kelly LLP, based out of Media, attorney ID number 84164. I'm here tonight on behalf of Darby Road Realty LLC, which owns the property located at 2112 Darby Road. With me tonight is Mr. Michael Braffman, who's a representative of Darby Road Realty LLC. I plan at some point to, have him speak and talk about the property. So I believe he may need to be sworn in now before we get started.
Okay. Mike, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please.
It's Michael Braffman, and it's currently at 524 South Bowman Ave in Marion Station.
Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you. So as just read, we're here for two reasons. One is to ask for a special exception pursuant to section 182-404B3B related to having an apartment for one family in combination with a business use. And for this property, it would be the business use on the first floor, the apartment on the second floor. We're also representing a variance from the minimum off-street parking requirements pursuant to section 182-707, which is also referenced in section 182-404E, which mandates 2 spaces for dwelling units. At this time, I would like to introduce, as part of the exhibit packet, what has been labeled Exhibits A7, which is our application and acknowledgement, and A8, which is the deed for the property.
Okay, I reviewed the deed. That's fine. There's no issues in terms of standing.
Okay, Billy, do you want to run through the other exhibits real quick?
Sure.
Or identify?
And I have pre-marked, looks like 8 exhibits. A1 is a photograph, which is a front view of the property and buildings to the right. A2 is a photograph of a front view of the property, as well as the Wagner real estate building to the left. A3, a front view of the property, a photograph again on the rest of the block. A4, a picture from the rear of the property, as well as depicting some of the public parking spaces. A5, a photograph of the public parking lot. A6, photograph regarding the entrance to the public parking lot in the back portion of the Wagner real estate building. And as you indicated, A7, your application and acknowledgement, which I find sufficient, and A8, the deed, which I already indicated was sufficient. Did I correctly identify those exhibits?
That is correct, Mr. Malone.
And is it applicant's desire to have those admitted into evidence at this time?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Kane, I see no reason not to have those at this point admitted.
Okay, they're admitted. Thanks, Bill.
Can I interrupt for a second? I don't think that the packets that I got included any of the photos.
Mine did not either.
And neither did mine.
I'm sorry, they were just submitted the other day. I can email them over to you guys really quickly, and I can also bring them up on the screen.
Okay. And while Kelly's doing that, Ed, I do have a question. You filed for a special exception under 182-404-B3B, and C3 commercial district that would call for an apartment or one family in combination with a business use. And just to clarify, would the applicants tend to be to rent that or have that apartment used by a family that would also be engaged in that business use, or are you looking for something else in terms of having someone in the apartment but also having a separate business use that's not from the people in the apartment?
It would be separate. It would be a family moving in up top, and then downstairs would be rented out to a separate commercial, retail use consistent with the neighborhood.
So I think in that situation, we may actually be looking for a variance as opposed necessarily to a special exception. I do think that notice is sufficient because I think there's been an indication as to the intent, so public notice is good. But would you be looking for an amendment to your application to also request a variance for use of the apartment on top of the business use?
Yes, if that's the determination, that's being made, then yes, we would be looking for an amendment to also, I guess, plead,
the
alternative relief, yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Kane, again,
I get it, and I need to discuss.
It's a notice state, and I think that sufficient notice is given here for that.
Yeah, and I have a few questions to go over with you, but we don't need to do it right now. We can do it after we're done hearing the case on that matter. But okay, so it's alternative relief as a variance for that. So go ahead, Ed.
Okay, and so I just want to describe a little bit about the property and neighborhood, and at least initially here, the Exhibit A1 orients everybody as to the property that we're talking about, which is the property with the gray paint that has the Lizelle's bridal boutique store.
Excuse me, just bring that up on.
A1.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kelly's doing it now.
Okay.
So we're looking at the property in question is the Lizelle's Bridal Boutique that has I'll call it the light gray paint, the white trim. It's the building where the white car is to the right of the rear of the white car is the building that's in question for tonight. And historically, at one time, this building had a commercial tenant on the first floor, and there was an apartment on the second floor. At some time in history, it was connected in some way. There was a stairwell that was inserted internally, and at least this prior owner here, Lizelle's, they used the second floor as a fitting room and a storage space, but they left for the most part, the apartment usage as far as, the bedrooms, bathroom, kitchen, etc., except that now there was a stairwell that connected the first floor to the second floor. is what happened here. But as you can see, as you look up and down the block, for the most part, these buildings, the first floor is used for commercial or retail use. Second floor used for residential use. That the exhibits A2 and A3 also show, they just give different views of the neighborhood. There you can see better the Wagner Real Estate Building, where the first floor is used for the real estate offices, second floor for residential, and then A3 shows the other side of the block, again with first floor commercial, second floor residential. The work that will be required internally, and Mr. Bratham can speak to that more, is more of a superficial nature to restore it to an apartment use, and a lot of it will be cosmetic in nature. Again, other than trying to close off the commercial from the residential side of things. From the parking perspective, that we're also asking relief. Exhibit A4 shows the rear of the buildings. And here it's to demonstrate that none of the buildings in this neighborhood have dedicated parking in the back, except for if you look at, go to exhibit A5, it's another view of the public parking lot, and then A6 shows the corner with the behind Wagner Real Estate where it looks like they're able to sneak a car in back there for parking purposes, but none of the other buildings. And so that's just by way of showing that, consistent with the rest of the neighborhood, none of these buildings are able to satisfy their minimum off-street parking requirements, much less this one. However, there's, as we saw here in A4, A5, A6, it's a public parking lot right behind this row of buildings. There's metered parking on the street out front. And what we're asking for as far as the apartment use up top and the small retail use down below, it's not going to put an overwhelming burden on parking in this particular neighborhood. One other thing I want to bring up is that it's my understanding, and I don't have reference to that, and I could be mistaken, but my understanding is that there's a new zoning overlay in the works in Haverford Township that would actually perhaps permit this use by right. Again, I can't confirm that. I don't have anything to introduce as evidence, but that's just something that is something that was our understanding, as far as this particular zoning area. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Brathman. As I said, he's a representative of Darby Road Realty, LLC, and just have him talk a little bit more about the project, about himself, and actually his soon-to-be, hopefully, connection with the apartment upstairs. So, Mr. Brathman, let you, speak for a couple minutes about this.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I think the connections he was aiming for is, or he was alluding to, is when my wife and I recently sold our home in Philadelphia, and our intention was, when we weren't aware that this was a special exception or potentially this was to move in upstairs there. Actually, we're very connected to the area. I'm a member of the board of directors of Narberth Ambulance and cover Haverford Township, and we're really close to the edge there. So we're very fond of the neighborhood with some friends living nearby. So our intention was and is hopefully to reside up there. And then in reference to when I say I'm not sure if it's a special exception or a variance, obviously there's a technicality there. We've had thoughts on putting a business down there. My wife and I are both small business owners, and we've thought about some possibilities what might go there. Kind of constantly polling people in the neighborhood when I come into contact with people either locally or people from the township about what they think would be a good fit for there. Before House Cup Roasters went in a couple doors down, we had thought to do a cafe there. I thought that would be really nice. For things that are, of benefit to the neighborhood, we have a strong belief in the future of, I mean, it's great as it is right now. I mean, obviously, actually really curious to see what goes into the old Brick and Brew spot. I was excited to see when the new one opened up there, and I saw the new Mexican restaurant opened up around the corner. I think there's just great things happening in the area. So that's sort of my connection to what's going on there. Our intention would just be to kind of cosmetically spruce up what's going on inside, and we reside there. We have just the two of us and my small son. So good kind of starter situation for us.
Thank you, Michael. And that, as far as the presentation is what we have. And as far as I can walk through the particulars of the variance or the special exception, but I believe that we, even if both are required to be a variance, that we would fit the bill for a variance request, in the fact that there are unique physical circumstances or conditions in light of the fact that these buildings have been there for quite some time, without any parking, as far as that is concerned, and it's consistent with the use of the other buildings of the way they were built, apparently for retail commercial use on the first floor, residential apartment on the second floor. No possibility that the property can be used in strict conformity, and the variance is necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property. In order for us to do this and use this in any way, we would need a variance from that parking exception, and to be able to convert this back to its historical uses, residential up top, retail on the bottom. This hardship was not created by Darby Road Realty LLC. It's not going to alter the essential character of the neighborhood in light of the fact that, as you can see from the photographs in the immediate vicinity of this property, it would be a consistent use with every other property that's on the block. And this is the minimum variance that we're asking for. Again, that if we look at the parking requirements of 2 spaces per dwelling, it's 2 parking spaces where we have a public lot in the back, metered parking in the front. And certainly I feel we meet that burden. If we meet that burden, then we would, if in fact we would consider perhaps a special exception on the use, that we would also that would also check the boxes pursuant to the special exception section of 182-1004A2. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay. Questions? Bill Malone or Bill Rhodes?
Yeah, hi. Mr. Braffman or Attorney Kelly, would you be willing, or would you accept a condition that the residential space is owner occupied?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's the intention. So I would lend to my attorney in case there's a technicality I'm not understanding about that. But that's certainly our intention.
Yeah, Michael, I think what he's asking is that it would be. I guess, Mr. Rhodes, I guess the question would be, is that owner occupied by someone affiliated with Darby Road Realty LLC, or would it be owner occupied that whoever lives up in the apartment up top would have to operate the business that's down below?
Yeah, so no, I was listening to Mr. Braffman's testimony about the expectation that he and his wife, as property owners, indirectly through the corporate entity, might live there. And I guess there's three things on the table here. One is that unfettered right to rent to anyone. One would be limit the second floor to the related business tenant, or third would be the property owner could live there, meaning that if Mr. Braffman and his spouse decided to move out, they would and then wanted to rent it to a different tenant, they would have to come back and get a new variance or special exception at that time. In theory, we could give a variance that would cover both the owner-occupant and the tenant scenario, the commercial tenant scenario. But I'm just wondering if we did if that kind of condition would be, if the applicant would be amenable to that kind of condition.
Yeah, just for the purpose of clarity, my wife and I don't directly own the property. It's my wife's family that does. So I mean, we're a related party to it. But it just wanted to be clear. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly our intention for now. I'm not sure I fully understand the future implication. I mean, I guess down the road, if we, years from now, I think we probably want to rent it elsewhere. If that meant we had to come back before you guys in order to do that. We're involved in real estate in some other ways. I mean, we're very careful about our tenants, and we have an interest in working with good people. So for whatever that's worth, in the future, we're mindful of that and how that impacts the neighborhood. Also, I meant to mention earlier, as far as the parking goes, I've been in contact with Haverford Township, with Linda over there about they're getting ready to reissue parking permits for back there, about getting a hold of one, and if there were two available to get two of those, which we would, maintain perpetuity, would be the idea for there. And in the meantime, she told me that parking is available at the old Haverford Township building, just up the road there. And then I've kind of walked around the area of what's available, and I've kind of looked at it at different times of the day and night about what spaces are available on residential streets. And it's just, from what I'm able to see, in my opinion, would be a burden to be placing. We only have one car, personally, as us. We wouldn't be placing it like a burden on the neighborhood or causing, congestion.
It's a good segue to where I want to go, because I did want to talk about parking, and I haven't had the benefit of seeing the pictures that you've submitted as evidence, but I saw one picture that came up that looked like it showed a car parked behind the Wagner Real Estate building, kind of parked parallel rather than perpendicular, angled right there. Thank you. And so the permits that you're talking about, Mr. Braffman, those would be permits to park on an unrestricted basis in these parking spaces in this public lot?
That'd be my understanding. My understanding is it delivers the same, I assume, comparable revenue that you guys would be getting from parking there. You're paying it in bulk for monthly access to it.
Okay. And then on the, I don't know if there were other photos showing the space behind the buildings, further up Darby towards the current Brick and Brew, the bee garden or the coffee shop. I think there had been testimony earlier that those properties don't have parking either behind their building, but if memory serves, there is essentially a drive that runs behind those buildings from the top of the public parking lot, and there are cars that park in there. It's not shown on this, I don't think. So it would be starting with the buildings to the left edge of this picture. And so I realize that the Wagner building might only have one apparent off-street spot there that we saw in that one photo, but I believe that the other ones on the other side of your building do have some off-street parking. And I would also add that, we are aware of some concerns about parking in this area of Darby Road. I realize that, depends on the time of day, you can go around and it might look to be, but we've heard, concerns raised in other cases about parking in this spot. So it is a sensitive issue, and it would be very useful to find out if you were able to get a permit or two in this public lot.
So I was told that if not, they're deciding when they're going to re-release these, and they're going to see how many people are on a waiting list, because I think there's other, from some of the other people around. And then they said, if not, there is a lot up the street, she told me, and she said there's plenty of permits available for there, so we would be prepared to go to those instead.
Okay, that's the Oakmont lot?
That would be the Oakmont lot, correct. That's not for our use, we don't go out. My wife works from home, and hard for me to have to walk up there. It's not a big deal.
Right. And then you mentioned, Mr. Kelly, you mentioned sort of 2 parking spots required for the residential space. Is that a 2-bedroom apartment?
Well, I think it was, let me just pull the statute here because I have it.
Yeah, I don't think the statute distinguishes. I was just wondering, you were talking about redoing the layout of the upstairs apartment or rehabilitating the apartment.
Oh, it doesn't.
Right,
it wouldn't affect the layout. Yeah, it's sort of set up as a smaller room and a larger room in there, which worked out to make a little room for our son and then a bedroom for my wife and myself.
And then, have you run the calculation of what the commercial space would require for parking spots? Which often is done by, depending on the nature of the business, it could be based on square footage or gross public gross public space. It depends on the business that may be in there. But they each have their own kind of parking requirements depending on the nature of the business. And, you know, we're being asked to sort of analyze relief on parking without knowing what the total tenant load, let's call it, the total parking burden imposed by this building in the 2 units, residential and commercial, might in the aggregate impose on the neighborhood.
Right, and we haven't done that calculation, and I think in part, one, because we don't know what is going in downstairs, we know how much of the retail space, you know, as far as square footage is concerned. Although, obviously, we're going from a 2-story commercial use and cutting that in half, so that now the commercial only has half of what it has been historically used for over the last however many years as as the bridal shop. You know, if you were doing that calculation, it would have to have counted downstairs and upstairs the way they were using it. I'm not aware, Michael, I don't believe that we've done that calculation without knowing the use that's going in there or how much of the floor area is being used, because I know that the calculation for the retail stores is, you know, 1 space per, I think, 200 square feet of floor area, something along those lines.
Yeah, I think that is one of the methodologies by which you would measure necessary parking, depending on the nature of the business. Okay, let me ask another question. The testimony was that the bridal shop had an interior staircase, and it sounds like the plan would be to close that off. Is that right?
Michael, you want to take that one?
Either that or to use it as a second form of egress, whatever, as per code, whatever was required.
Okay, and then is there, sort of going into the bridal shop and up the staircase, what is the access for the upstairs?
Oh, it has its own separate entrance, because as it was originally from when it was an apartment previously. So immediately next door, if you look at the front there's 2 front entrances on Darby Road.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Ed McGargy. We lose Ed?
Might have stepped away.
Oh, no. Okay.
I'm here. Question I had was, now you're saying it was a bedroom and maybe a bedroom and a half, right?
It's two bedrooms. There's just one smaller and one larger. I was just yeah.
Okay. The other thing I had, parking situation. I don't know how you had it described to you. During some of the last testimony we've heard in other cases that the parking spots aren't guaranteed. Or to get a parking pass, that if nobody's using it, you can park there. Was that explained to you that way?
Right. No, it wouldn't be for a fixed spot. Yes. Yeah, I understood that.
Wouldn't be for a fixed.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know that. No one had ever told me it would be, so I wasn't under the assumption. Possibly it might be. I don't know how that works exactly.
I didn't understand it either when it was explained at the last case we had, that they would just, you have a spot, but it's not guaranteed. It's just that you paid the fee, and if nobody was taking a spot, it wasn't like it was reserved.
Yeah, our thought on that was that to either go up to, there's 2 other lots within easy walking distance from there that she said there's both. There's never any parking issues there when I spoke with Linda, and we, and with those options. Big driving people, and when I'm out for long periods of time, like through the day, like on the road.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Jesse?
I guess I'm struggling too with the question of the potential future business use, and it is tough to. Do we have any idea now what currently is permitted or allowed as far as parking spaces for that property, or does that not exist? Correct. Is it all just based on street parking and the public lot?
And I'm not exactly sure what that answer is either. And I think that, in trying to trace back the history, that there's a possibility that this building was converted to where it was 2 floors of commercial, perhaps in the 70s. So some of that information we may not, I don't know if we have access to it, or if it's, has survived, is grandfathered itself in at some point, through various zoning changes. I can't say one way or the other.
And I guess my other question would be, what would your immediate plans be as far as the storefront? Would you be looking to strip it of its existing storefront signage, and how would you be leaving it in the interim before you decided on potential?
Our goal is to be as good a stewards as possible in the neighborhood. I think it's good for everybody. We're trying. I'd like for it to look as nice as possible. Matter of fact, a while back, someone from the township or associated with the township was looking to do something about local shopping, maybe around the holiday season. And I told them they could set up, their signage there and things like that. And I told them until we had it set up, if they had a use for it or something, they were certainly welcome to. I don't know. We've had a number of calls on it. We've actually had people who weren't really interested in putting in there so far, just because of the composition of the neighbor. Someone wanted to put another. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but somebody wanted to put a nail salon in there or something like that. And I just kind of thought that it's a vibrant area that maybe is something that really is universally kind of beneficial to everybody, and there isn't a lot of around there. Would be good for the area. We really are receptive to kind of feedback from both the township and just kind of surrounding business owners and residents about what might go there. But our goal will be to leave it as nice as possible in the interim.
And then you may not be able to answer this question either, but do you have a general sense of how I don't know if you've spoken to other people who live above any of the other units in that block area? Do you know how they deal with their parking?
From what I told them, they don't have. From what I've understood from speaking with them, is they don't really have. I've spoken to some of the people over Wagner at times when they come out, and that's that's got a bunch of units in there. And they said they don't really ever have a problem finding parking. They said it got a little bit more when with Town Tap, I think it is, across came in. But they said even with that, it hasn't been a huge burden to them. There's always something around.
Well, that's because that's because of the COVID probably right now. So.
Oh no, we've involved the building for a couple of years. I was curious about it when we were looking at it under due diligence, and I had spoken to them even back then about it. I was kind of intrigued.
Thank you.
And since then, oh sure, but yeah.
And I guess one last quick follow up. Or when did the bridal boutique close?
Very recently. We gave her some time. She was sort of winding down, and then COVID was a little bit of a difficult matter. So it's kind of questionable. I kind of gave her some extra time there to just kind of wind down after it wasn't really a feasible business for her anymore.
Thank you. No other questions at this time.
Jess?
I just wanted to confirm that you are not going to be using the first floor as any kind of occupied dwelling space, since there is a connecting.
Correct. It would not be used for an occupied dwelling. That's absolutely not our intention.
And everyone asked my other questions. I guess Bob, if it's possible to maybe ask for a calculation based on the area of your space and what that would look like for all the different tenants, so we can kind of decide yay or nay on like the worst case. You don't know who's going to be going in there.
We can also work it in reverse, right? So if only certain uses fit, conform to what it is there, then that's who's going to be able to go in there.
So yeah, let me pipe in here for a little bit. I think that the board has some questions in terms of the use of the commercial space. Should they be interested in granting this? And I think it's a reasonable use of the board's powers to say that the only uses that they would approve would be limited to X, Y, or Z parking. Because clearly there is no valid parking for this property downstairs or upstairs. I think we can all look at that and agree to that at this point. So I think if we look at this in said from a reverse way, I think it would be a reasonable use of this board's powers to say, should a commercial use be presented that would require or allow for more than X number of spaces, then the applicant would have to come back to request additional relief. And I think that's something that the applicant just seemed to have said he'd be willing to do.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, we want to, it's in the interest of the neighborhood, so certainly.
Well, Michael, do you know how many? What's the square footage total square footage?
It's about 1,000. It's about 1,000 square feet down there, give or take.
All right. So it looks like if you're doing the retail store calculation, 1,000 square feet. If it's based on, if I'm accurate here, looking at the one statute, if it's one space for each 2,000 square feet of floor area, he has a maximum of 1,000 square feet. That's if you don't, carve any of that out into storage or back room or anything like that, but it looks like you would need 5 spaces. If I'm doing that math right. The math checks out on that. And Mr. Malone, I don't know if that helped. If I'm in the ballpark of what we're talking about here.
No, you're saying the right thing, and I think it's look, I really sometimes this board tries to render their decision the same night. I think they're going to need to look at this a little bit more in terms of what uses are appropriate in terms of that. But I certainly respect the applicant's position here that he's willing to look at it again in a backwards situation where he's saying that if there's a commercial use that comes up that would require more than say 5 spaces, I'm just throwing it out there, that maybe we have to come back and discuss that again. But that's going to be up to the board to deliberate upon and to really look at the code and what is a reasonable condition. So again, that's assuming that the board, and I don't want to presuppose, is willing to grant that variance or special exception. And just one second question is, what is, just so we're clear, what is the intent with regard to that interior stairwell? Is it going to be blocked off?
It would most likely be blocked off. I would assume there's no intention to keep them connected. So if it wasn't going to be blocked off, then you put a party wall forward of that.
I'm just trying to make sure that the members of this board have all the information they need to render a.
Bill, I'm sorry. Would it be appropriate to ask if that's if they're willing to accept that as a contingency or
as a reasonable as a condition? Sure.
As the condition. Thank you.
Mr. Blackman, would you agree if the board were inclined to grant the variance and a special exception? Would you agree as a condition that you would create a party wall so that there was no direct access interiorly from the commercial use to the residential?
100%. That's not a question. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Jess? Ed?
No, and I think you should give yourself credit for the bridal boutique. They used the second floor as part of their store area, so that would be existing parking spots that they would have had prior approval for. In other words, it was already an acceptable use for non-conforming.
A more intense use.
Yeah, so what happens is this becomes a modification of a pre-existing non-conformity, and so you have some discretion there to do what you want to do.
It's actually reducing the parking burdens as they might be calculated under our code, right? So
it could be. Again, depends upon what the proposed future use is, and that's where you can put in something if you were to approve this as a safeguard, so that if they put in a use, and I just can't think of one off the top of my head that would allow for 10 parking spaces, well, they would have to come back. You know,
right.
You put something in there.
So what we might ask Mike or Ed for is an actual square footage calculation for the first floor, because if the total area is 1,000 square feet, I'm sure there's a bathroom down there. There are walls. There are other things that occupy the square footage that reduces the usable square footage. So if it's reduced to 800, maybe only 4 spots are required. So 4 might be the number.
I believe that's probably a fair calculation if you take out the bathroom, which would be a bathroom, and you take out, a back store, a back area there, which would I can't imagine most businesses would operate without. It would easily reduce that down to 800 square feet because it's probably a little bit short of the 1,000 square feet to begin with.
Yeah. So
depending on, I'm sorry.
So you might be looking at 4 parking spots. So I mean, go ahead, Kathy.
Sorry, I just wanted to clear that up before we got too far into it. Very often bathrooms are considered parking floor area for businesses, especially like commercial services. And then a lot of the uses are anywhere that a customer can travel to. So anything that's for customer use. And then the other uses aren't head out that way. So again, I think a full floor plan of maybe what's existing to show what the current requirements for the retail use would be versus what a worst case scenario would take. So to 2 spaces.
Yeah, as it sits right now, it's just one big open space inside of there. So it's literally the front of the building by the side of the building. That's the floor area in there.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful. And to Ed's point, hypothetically speaking, say it's 800 square feet on the first floor and there's another 400 on the second floor currently. That would be an interesting calculation for us to see.
I apologize, I didn't catch that last part.
So sorry. Ed had pointed out that there's currently usable space upstairs. So just throwing it out there, if it was 800 on the first floor and if it was 400 usable on the second floor, to Kelly's point, maybe there's a back storage room that customers would not use, but there was changing rooms that they do use, and so whatever that is, that may be, say hypothetically it was 1,200 square feet, and that would yield 6 spaces. That would be the calculation I think that we're looking for. Is that?
Well, the residential calculation.
Well, the upstairs wouldn't be part of the. You're looking backwards.
Michael, I think what they're saying is that as it was a bridal shop and they were using upstairs where customers were coming in and using it for fitting rooms and trying things on, and they had access to the bathroom and everything else, as we were saying, because that's open for patron use, that the prior nonconformity would include, let's say, the 1,000 square feet that's on the first floor. And then the second floor, I don't know what the square footage is up there, but let's say it's consistent with down below, maybe a little less, but just use 1,000. Now it's 2,000 square feet that was a commercial use already. That they needed parking spaces, so it would be.
Oh yeah, she was using the entirety of it previously, and people went throughout the entire space. She saw clients in the back of it, and then she had fitting upstairs, and then she had this special section for dresses up there. So the entirety of the building was previously used for that purpose.
So, and if that use would have required 10, and now that you want to make the second floor an apartment, which would have a requirement of 2 spots, and downstairs at a maximum of 1,000 feet might be 5. If you definitively show that your use will require 7, so it's less burdensome on the neighborhood than the 10 that would have been required for the bridal salon use. I think what Jesse's getting at is that it might help show that it's actually less of a parking strain on the neighborhood. Is that fair, Jesse?
Yes, and I was really just riffing off of Ed's hypothetical, but you have put it much more eloquently than I. So thank you, and I think that is what we're looking demonstrate to us.
And Mike, is that something you would be able to do and send over to Kelly and she could distribute it to us?
I think so. That would be you're just looking for a floor plan?
Yeah, basically for both floors, and Ed will know how to calculate the parking requirements. What they would be for what the bridal salon's parking requirements would have been, which is one spot for every 200 square feet of patron use.
That's anything except.
Well, they were using it as fitting rooms, so the presumption would be that it was all used for retail.
Yeah, the entirety of the square footage was used because they had access to the bathrooms. So that's what a floor plan would show, would be the total square footage.
Right. So if they would have required 10 and you only require with your proposed use, 2 upstairs, and you're willing to max out at 5 downstairs without coming back to the board, that would be 7, which is less than 10. So it's less of a burden on the neighborhood for parking, and that would be good for you. Ed, you understand where we're going with this, right?
Yes, no, okay. I know exactly where you're going with this.
Okay.
Right, so
if you could,
if you could, in advance of the next meeting, you could send it to me and Kelly, and we'll disseminate it to the board. Calculations regarding the current use, and that meaning the bridal salon use in terms of parking, and calculations estimated regarding residential and commercial downstairs use. That would really help the board in making a determination here, especially to the extent that the applicant would be willing to indicate that they would stay below the current parking requirements.
Understood.
Thank you.
Okay. And any other questions from the board? Okay. And we're going to continue this case rather than conclude it. But to the extent there's anyone present that receives certified mail that wishes to testify, regular mail, any other residents with that, is there anything you'd like to add, Ed, or Mike, before we continue this?
No, I think that's everything. And particularly for picking it back up again in 2 weeks. I know there's the one issue I would like to have opportunity, if it becomes a possible condition, to talk to my client about, which is what Mr. Rhodes mentioned early in the hearing about the owner-occupied concept, because there may be an issue. There may be an issue there, but I'd like to talk to Mr. Braffin about that ahead of any agreement on that point, if in fact that becomes a condition.
Yeah.
Sure, and feel free to reach out to me.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, after I continue this, we're going to take a 2-minute break. With that, this case is continued to our, believe it or not, 12121, January 21st hearing. And we'll do a decision that night as well. So this case is continued. Recess. Okay. We'll resume the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board. Our next case is Z21-3, John and Joanna Culp, owners of 232 Cherry Lane, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2203-0038100, who seek a variance from the provisions of section 182-206C9 to construct a 10-foot by 23-foot one-story addition exceeding the maximum 45% impervious surface coverage by 145.8 square feet, or 47.4%. Property is zoned R4 and located in the 3rd Ward. Mr. and Mrs. Culp, I presume.
Yes, hi.
Hi. I need to swear you guys in, so ladies first. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Joanna Lee Culp, 232 Cherry Lane, Havertown, Pennsylvania, 19083.
Okay. And now you, John, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
John Lawrence Cope, 232 Cherry Lane, Haverford Township, Pennsylvania, 19083.
Okay, please tell us a little bit, before we do that, Billy, would you take us through the exhibits real quick, please? You're on mute, Bill.
I have in front of me your exhibit list. Please listen for a second, and at the end I'll ask if I correctly identified all of your exhibits. Remark Exhibit A1 is your application and acknowledgement signed by the applicants. A2 is the deed, which I have reviewed and sufficient for standing purposes. A3 are your impervious surface calculations. 4 is a site plan dated November 16, 2020. A5 is a letter from your neighbors, Kevin and Monica O'Brien, indicating that they consent to your application. They live at 228 Cherry Lane. And A6, a letter from Harry and Susan Herman from 236 Cherry Lane, also indicating that they have no objection to your application. Have I correctly identified those exhibits?
Yes.
And is it your intent and desire to have those admitted into evidence before the board in this matter?
Yes.
Mr. Kane, I see no reason why those exhibits should not be admitted.
Okay, so they're admitted. And whoever's going to be the primary spokesperson, please tell us a little bit about what you would like to do and why.
Yeah, that's going to be me. So thank you so much for having us tonight. Thanks for hearing our case and listening to us. So essentially what we're looking to add to our home is a first-story addition, which would include a bathroom, which we don't have on our first floor, a half bath, a mudroom, which we don't have as well, and then an additional living room / living space in the back part of the house. We have 3 kids, and COVID has obviously kept us all in much closer quarters than we've been in the past. 3 kids doing school from home, as well as myself working from home now. So we're looking to both add some more space to our existing house, as well as to add a half bathroom on the first floor, which again, having 3 kids feels like a bit helpful, especially with a 4-year-old who's recently potty trained, the ability to run quickly to the bathroom when needed. We are also, when I talk about adding the living space and adding the half bath and the mudroom, where we're adding that is a current space that is occupied by a deck. A deck that is actually kind of dilapidated and on its last legs. We don't use very often right now. So when we're adding this additional addition onto our house, we aren't actually taking over any yard space that's currently in use. We're only taking the space that's been occupied by a deck and turning it into an actual livable space for our family unit, which would add a lot of value. Particularly in terms of what I listed, half bathroom on the first floor, which we don't have, as well as an additional living space in mudroom.
And you don't mean monetary value, Joanna. You mean value to you as a family, right?
As a family, yeah, as a family. Again, particularly for the reasons that I listed, value as in having 3 kids and having a bathroom that they can use on the first floor. Value as in having an additional living space when 3 kids are doing school from home, as well as myself working from home right now. We're feeling the tight quarters in addition to, all the extra bodies in the space. So it would add additional space for us as a family to occupy and use. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for clarification. I think also you saw listed in our application and our variance documents that we, for the reasons that I already had spoken about in terms of our family and our children, one of the other reasons that this is of importance to us right now is that we have an ailing parent who
not at this exact moment, but in the foreseeable future, may need to be using our space as part of a part-time quarters to live in. So that's of importance to us in terms of the first floor bathroom, as well as an additional space to have for an ailing parent that may need it in the future.
Okay. What ward is this in? 3?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about,
yeah, we're in Ward 3.
Yeah. Jess, you want to go first?
Sure. You didn't include any calculations on your existing coverage. I know you said that you are covering the deck exactly as it. So your opinion, is your impervious coverage currently equal to 47.5%?
I'm going to let my husband field the numbers. So
so from my understanding, the deck is not included in impervious. So we would reduce the impervious by 230 square feet. So whatever that number is, I can't do the quick math now, but so whatever we're at 2904, we would reduce that by 230.
Kelly, can you confirm that the deck isn't impervious? Because I thought it was.
A deck, unless it has a concrete pad underneath, stone underneath, something similar, we do consider building coverage, but not impervious coverage.
My next question is, I noticed that you have a garage on your property. Do you currently use that for parking?
No.
Do you, I guess what I'm looking for is, I know that you're not right up on the creek, but you are close to a couple blocks away from Cops Creek, probably a little bit uphill.
Yep.
That does tend to flood often.
Yes.
So
not
it
to
doesn't
your
actually,
property, but
yeah, it doesn't flood on our property because we're at the top of the hill.
Right.
Unfortunately for the people at the bottom of the hill, it does flood
Quite a bit.
An unfortunate amount, yes, but we haven't had flooding now on our
Right. I'm just thinking that additional runoff from your property, depending on how your gutters are directed, like mine are down the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people's are, that runoff just continues down.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I was just wondering if you looked at your current impervious coverage to see if there's anything you could remove to kind of balance the change a little bit.
We have not looked at that at this time.
Or if that's something that's if that's not feasible, you can say that's not really feasible for us and how we use the yard.
I mean, to be honest, we have not looked at it. So,
okay. Yeah. And then I wanted to confirm that the addition is the minimum size you need to accommodate the 3 spaces that you discussed.
Yes.
Yeah. When we looked at it with our designer and our contractor, this is the smallest footprint that we can have for fitting in a bathroom, a mudroom, and a small living space.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Ed?
Yeah, looking at the plot plan and something you suggested that you had an additional addition. Was there any additions on this property before, besides this single?
Oh no, I think I was just speaking I think I was noticing that I was using the word addition a couple of different times, so I just added addition to it. Yeah, we've had no other additions to the space.
In lieu of what Jessica was saying, the reason that we have an impervious surface coverage limitations is try to promote infiltration and volume control on lots, so we don't have increase the stormwater. And 230 square feet is not a lot, but it's a cumulative effect for the neighborhood, and not required by the ordinance. I think it's 1,000 square feet of new impervious that before you have to do stormwater management. But would you be willing to consider some type of stormwater controls, either something as simple as rain barrel or rain garden, infiltration trench or something on your property?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, that's all I have.
Bill?
Hi. So I just wanted to just to confirm, the current footprint of your existing deck that will be removed is the same as your proposed footprint of the addition?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't need to go any further out to the side or further back than you currently do on your deck?
No.
Sorry.
Okay. And is this deck, essentially built right on the ground, or is it elevated?
It's elevated.
Okay. And do you, on your proposed addition, well, if it's elevated, is the ground underneath it gravel or dirt or?
Ground underneath it is a large rock right now. Somebody, I think previous to us, not us, had a koi pond in the space, and whoever took out that koi pond, previous owners, took all the rock from the koi pond area and put it under the deck. So under the deck is all rock right now.
Okay. And then on your proposed addition, are you adding an egress or like a door to the outside?
Yeah, we plan on adding a door to the outside.
Okay, and that would then presumably enter into the new mudroom. Is that the point?
Yes.
And then I'm looking at A4, which is your plot plan. And, one of the sensitivities that we have, because we deal with this type of issue all the time, is the ability of a fire truck to access the back of your property. And it's one reason why we have side yard setbacks, so to allow a vehicle to get along the side of your house, and maybe even into the backyard. And it might not be necessarily just for your house. It might be to access an ability to put a fire out on an adjoining property. The space, the gap between the farthest edge of your addition away from the house, the existing house, and closest to the garage. Have you calculated that? I don't know that this plot plan is necessarily exactly to scale, but have you calculated the distance from your garage to the nearest corner of your proposed addition?
We have not.
So just eyeballing it, it looks like it's somewhere around 15 to, it looks less than 19, which we see is the size of your garage, or the depth of your garage. But so maybe, do you think it's roughly 15 feet?
Just give me a second, and I'll try and come up with a calculation.
Okay.
Right.
Is this plot plan to scale?
It is not to scale.
Okay. Yeah, so I would be interested, because sometimes we do try to ensure that in the worst case scenario, a fire truck could, even a small one, could get back there if they needed to.
Understood. He's running the numbers of what he has right now.
Okay. I mean, we know your overall length is 123 feet, and your garage is roughly 20, and the house itself is 33 for a 10-foot, front porch.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's running right now.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're probably pretty accurate with the number we don't know is from the property on the street to our house. So we don't have that number calculated. So I could run outside real quick with a tape measure.
I mean, what I'd like to know is that it's certainly no less than the width of your driveway, but ideally it would be a little bit wider for a turning angle of a truck trying to turn back there. I don't know how to get this.
Well, it can't be less than 10 feet, right? No.
Right. Yeah. Is that the number? Is that right, Kelly? Is it 10? Sorry, I'm sorry.
Right, so there is a requirement that the rearmost portion of the house can't be any closer to an accessory structure than 10 feet. But it also has to be 10 feet further back, so that's not measured diagonally, horizontally. It's a 10-foot separation from the rearmost portion of the house, like as if there's a 10-foot buffer running all the way through the property. So if they're not meeting that requirement, they have to come back.
It's definitely greater than 10 feet. I can almost assure you of that.
And then just want to confirm, we've talked about this as this is a one-story addition, or is it a two-story addition?
One story.
Okay, and then would the roof of this be sloped away from the house towards the backyard, and is that similar to the roof over your front porch?
Yes. It would be sloped like the A-frame.
Okay. Okay. Is your front porch roof an A-frame roof also?
It is not. It's kind of. It's not. It's kind of in all directions, I guess. It's kind of flat on the top and then goes down in kind of every direction. I don't know if that's called.
And then, but the roof on your on the new proposed addition would emulate the roof line at a lower level of your main house.
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Jesse?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I also had a similar question as far as where there may be other opportunities on the existing site to perhaps pick up other impervious areas. So I would certainly encourage you to think of that, and seeing an existing comparison. And Kelly, not you are the expert, obviously, but I was looking at the impervious calculation sheet again that the township provides, and if I'm not mistaken, the decks are included in the building, as you said, but then you do add the building to other impervious. Doesn't it kind of become part of the impervious?
That worksheet's just to help people out. We net it out when it comes in, and just make sure that there's no concrete area or roof on top of it. It's just to help people fill it out, and then we kind of work through it from there.
Okay. And are there any other areas of impervious surfaces on your property?
I don't believe so. For this purposes, we try to capture everything we could think of that we saw that's impervious. We wanted to show as much as possible.
And then, as far as other parts of your house, I actually have a very similar layout of property to you, with a long driveway and a garage in the back, and so I think I'm very near my limit as well. And we were able to expand kind of up. Have you guys already been able to occupy your attic level?
Yes.
That's already been maxed out as far as your usable space within your existing. And I believe you noted you submitted letters from your neighbors. Do they have? I think they note that they have similar additions on the back of their houses.
They do. They each have almost the exact same addition. The neighbors directly next to us, Monica and Kevin O'Brien, did almost the exact same thing to their house last year.
That was where I was getting at. Are you kind of modeling your addition kind of off similar ones that your neighbors have done?
I don't know that we're modeling it off of them, but yeah, I mean, we're noting how people fit in a first floor bathroom and an additional living space, yeah, and then tailoring it to what our family needs.
And general character will be similar to your neighbors.
It will.
In general, yeah.
In general, yes.
I have. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I did have one more thing. I noticed a discrepancy. Sorry. Page 2 of Exhibit A1 noted it's the continuation of item 5. Talks about it says 159. I believe that should be square feet, but the agenda says the 145.8. I wanted to clarify which number was correct.
I believe the 159 is correct.
159 is correct, and is it just the
Square feet.
Square feet.
Square feet, right?
Jesse, I recalculated their actual impervious with the deed. Their actual size, so they actually had a little bit more than what they were saying. That's why there's a discrepancy in the application to the
Thank you.
the notice.
Okay, so so just to clarify for the record, the agenda is correct.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Is that it, Jess?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Jessica?
I actually have one more question.
Yeah.
Did you calculate space that you would need for stairs to exit out of this addition?
We have not. That's a good question. That's something we missed.
Ed?
Other questions?
Bill?
No other questions, thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else you guys would like to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. With that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify, anyone that received regular mail, any other residents of Haverford Township. Bill Malone, check all the boxes, Billy?
You did.
Okay. So with that, we'll close the record on this case, and we will either render a decision this evening or at our next regularly scheduled meeting on January 21st, if we're not able to reach a decision this evening. So, does any board member have any questions or anything they want to run by Bill Malone in executive session before we start doing decisions?
No, just the minutes approval, Bob.
Okay, well, we may as well do that now, Ed, because I have a question for Bill about.
Yeah, let's do the minutes. I'd like to talk to Bill too about several things, right?
Yep. Okay. Go ahead, Ed.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of December 17th, 2020 as distributed to everyone.
Okay. And Jess, you're probably going to abstain from this, right? Yeah. Okay.
Right. And I would just clarify, it was the last distribution of the minutes that included the reference that the December 17 meeting was held virtually.
Okay. You want that included, Bill? Is that what you're saying?
Bill Malone circulated a revised draft of the minutes shortly before the meeting that included the acknowledgement that the meeting was held with the majority of the board members participating virtually.
Okay, and that's the version that you're moving and want to move into the record, right, Ed?
Yes.
Okay, so all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Our minutes are moved. So we'll go into executive session for whatever time it takes, and then we'll reconvene and do the two decisions, hopefully. Cal, you want to kick everybody out? Okay, we'll resume the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, January 7. With regard to case Z21-1, Jared Popovich and Anthippe Paxinos, I won't read the entire description into the record unless someone feels it's necessary. I would ask, Jessica, are you ready to vote?
I am.
Ed, are you ready to vote?
I am.
Bill, are you ready to vote?
Yes, I am.
And Jesse, are you prepared to vote?
I am prepared.
And so am I. Jessica, would you please take that decision?
Sure. I vote to approve the application with the following conditions. The deck will be sized 11 feet by 18 feet per the submitted plan. There will be no enclosures below the deck, no permanent roof structure over the deck. Vehicular access will be maintained to the garage below. There will be no storage below the deck. The only utility will be electric, and the additional 3-foot lattice will be permitted at the party wall to the adjacent neighbor only.
And completed in a year?
And completed within a year in accordance to the notes of testimony.
Perfect. Jesse, how do you vote?
I agree.
Ed?
Concur.
Bill?
I agree.
And so do I. That application is approved with those conditions, 5-0. With respect to case Z21-3, John and Joanna Culp, owners of 232 Cherry Lane. Same comment. I won't read the rest of the description into the record unless someone feels it's necessary. I would ask Jessica, are you prepared to vote?
I am.
Bill, are you prepared to vote? Jesse, are you prepared to vote?
Yeah.
And Ed, are you prepared to vote?
Yes.
And so am I. Bill Rhodes, would you please take that decision?
Yes, with respect to application Z21-3, I would vote to approve the requested variance and including in that variance an additional 40 square feet of impervious coverage that can be used solely for a rear stairs to access the rear door. And subject to the following 3 conditions, the applicant will install a rain garden to catch the runoff from the roof of the addition. The applicant will control stormwater generally so as not to adversely affect neighboring properties. And the project will be completed within 1 year of this approval in accordance with the notes of testimony.
Okay. Jessica?
I agree.
Ed?
I concur.
Jesse?
I concur.
I concur as well. That application is approved with those conditions, 5-0. Any other business before we adjourn? Okay. Well, good luck to the Culps and the, gosh, I don't want to, Jared and Thippi. I don't want to trash your name. Good luck with your projects.
Thank you.
Stay well. And we are adjourned. Thank you, Jeff.